Before we dive into this chilling tale, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories. You won't want to miss the true, dark accounts I'm about to share. So sit tight and let's begin. It happened on July 12, 2013, Rosewood, Tennessee. I don't know if anyone will believe me after reading this. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll think I'm crazy, or that I made it all up. But I'm not, I swear. I wouldn't wish what happened on anyone. And if I'm being honest, I'd rather not remember it. But that's not something you can run from. It follows you. It always does. I'm not a professional writer. Hell, I never even thought about writing stories until now. But something in this town made me realize that I need to get this out there. Maybe I'll feel better. Maybe you'll understand. Or maybe I'm just doing this to stop the nightmares that never leave me. I came to Rosewood, looking for peace. It was supposed to be my escape, my fresh start. I was running away from something, my own demons. Things I didn't want to face. And when I found Rosewood, it seemed perfect. A small town, quiet, tucked away from the chaos of the world. A place where no one would ask questions. No one would know me, but you can't outrun things, can you? You can't hide forever. I remember the first time I saw the place. The town wasn't much. A few run-down buildings, a diner that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in years, and a gas station on the edge of town that seemed to be stuck in time. The streets were empty, the air heavy, like it hadn't seen a fresh breeze in ages. It felt like no one had walked through here in years. The first day I arrived, I ended up at that diner. The owner, a woman in her 60s named Ms. Jenkins, was nice enough. She had this smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, but she was polite. She gave me my coffee and told me all about the town's history. Well, what she wanted me to know, anyway. Rosewood's a quiet place, she said, wiping down the counter. People come and go, but we mind our own business. If you keep to yourself, you'll fit right in. Something about her words felt off, like there was more she wasn't saying. But I shrugged it off. Who cared? I was just passing through, right? The townsfolk were friendly, but there was something strange about them. Not all of them, but enough to make me feel uneasy. They all had that same forced smile, like they were all keeping something buried deep down. I stayed in a small, worn-down house on the edge of town. It wasn't much, but it was quiet, and that's all I needed. I kept to myself, like they said, trying to forget the past. But every night, as I sat on the porch with my beer, I couldn't shake the feeling that the town was watching me, watching my every move. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it. It was just a small town, and everyone knows everyone, right? But it wasn't just me. The people there were different. They acted like they were waiting for something. Something I couldn't see. They were always looking over their shoulders, like there was a shadow just out of sight. It wasn't until a week later that I started to understand that it was that night. I had been out for a walk, trying to clear my mind. The sun had just set, and the streets were empty, like they always were after dark. But this time, as I walked past the old cemetery, I noticed something strange. A faint noise. A whisper, almost like the wind. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like it was coming from the trees. I tried to ignore it, but curiosity got the best of me. I followed the sound, deeper into the woods. The air grew colder, and the trees seemed to close in around me. The silence was heavy, like the world had stopped moving. That's when I saw it, a tree with strange markings carved into its bark. At first, I thought it was nothing, just kids messing around. But the deeper I looked, the more I realized something wasn't right. The symbols looked ancient, like they had been there for years, maybe even centuries. I ran my fingers over them, and that's when I felt it, the cold. It wasn't just the chill of the night air. It was something else, something unnatural. Then I heard the whisper again, closer this time. Leave, I froze. The voice was low, almost like it came from the ground beneath my feet. My heart raced, and I felt a cold sweat break out across my skin. I wanted to turn around, but my legs wouldn't move. It was like the forest was holding me in place. Leave now. I snapped out of it. My legs finally moved, and I ran. I don't even remember how I got back to the house. All I know is that when I did, my heart was pounding in my chest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks, that I was tired, but it wasn't just that. Something in the town, something in the woods had called to me, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next day, I went to the library. I had to know what those symbols meant. I needed to understand what was happening. But when I started asking around, people grew nervous. No one would talk about the woods, about the town's history. They all acted like they didn't know anything, like they were trying to forget, but I couldn't stop. The more I looked, the more I felt like I was getting closer to something. Something dark. I didn't know it at the time, but that night, the night I wandered into the woods, was the beginning of everything. The whispers, the markings, the strange feeling that never left me. It was all part of something bigger. Something I wasn't ready for, but I was going to find out, and I should have known better. The town wasn't just quiet. It was hiding something. Something old. Something that had been waiting. I couldn't stop thinking about the woods. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those strange symbols carved into the tree. I could almost feel them on my skin. And the whisper. It kept echoing in my mind. Leave now. It felt like a warning, but it also felt like a promise. I went back to the diner the next morning. Miss Jenkins was there, wiping down the counter, just like usual. But today, there was something different about her. She wasn't smiling. Her hands shook as she set down my coffee, and when she looked at me, it wasn't with kindness. It was like she was afraid. Everything all right? I asked, trying to make small talk. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes darted to the door, like she was looking for someone. Then she leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper. You've been asking questions, haven't you? I froze. I hadn't told anyone about the symbols or the whispers, but somehow. She knew. People like you don't last long here, she continued, her voice tight. You don't understand what this town is, what it needs. I stared at her, unsure of what to say. I wanted to ask her what she meant, but something in her face told me I wouldn't get the answers I was looking for. So I kept quiet. She straightened up and forced a smile. You'll figure it out soon enough, I suppose. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. The whisper in the woods, the strange markings, Miss Jenkins. Warning. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for a long time. I had to know what it was. So I went back to the woods. The moment I stepped into the trees, the air felt different, heavier. It was like the forest was alive, watching me, waiting. I followed the path I had taken the night before, and sure enough, there it was, the tree with the symbols. But this time, I saw something else. Something worse. There were fresh marks on the tree. Deep, jagged cuts that weren't there the last time. And as I stared at them, I realized they weren't just random scratches. They were part of a pattern, a design that seemed to shift the longer I looked at it. I felt dizzy. The world around me seemed to bend, like it was warping. Then I saw it. A figure standing just beyond the trees. At first, I thought it was someone else from the town, but as I squinted, I realized it wasn't human. Its form was tall, thin, and covered in shadows, like it was made of smoke. Its eyes glowed, bright and piercing, and it stared directly at me. I wanted to run. I tried to, but my legs wouldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, unable to look. Away. Then, it spoke. Its voice was a low rasp, like wind scraping across dry leaves. You shouldn't be here. I didn't wait to hear anything else. I turned and ran faster than I ever had in my life, not daring to look back. But when I reached the edge of the woods, I dared a glance. The figure was still standing there, watching, its glowing eyes following me. That night I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with me. Something inside me had shifted. I felt different, like I had seen something I wasn't supposed to, something that was never meant to be known. The next morning, the town was the same, quiet, empty, but it felt wrong. The people were going about their business, but there was an undercurrent of fear in their movements, like they were all pretending that nothing had changed. I went to the library again, hoping to find something that could explain all of this, but it was the same as before. No one would talk. The librarian, an older man with thick glasses, simply ignored me when I asked about the town's history. He pretended not to know anything, like it was nothing but a sleepy little town. But I could see it in his eyes, he knew. He was scared, and then I saw something. A book on the shelf, tucked away in a corner. Its cover was old, its pages yellowed with age. It wasn't marked with a title, but there was something about it that called to me. I pulled it down and opened it, flipping through the pages. Most of it was just random writings, drawings, and symbols. But then I found a page that made my blood run cold. The symbols from the woods, the same ones carved into the tree. Only now I understood what they were. They weren't just marks. They were part of a ritual that had been performed in Rosewood for centuries. I couldn't read all of it, but I could understand enough. There was something in the woods, something old and dark, and the people of Rosewood had been keeping it contained for generations. The ritual was meant to keep it at bay. But every 7 years they had to offer a sacrifice. Someone from the town, and if they stopped, the thing in the woods would be free. I slammed the book shut, my heart pounding. But it wasn't over. It was just beginning. I had found out too much. And now I was part of the town's dark secret. And they knew I knew. I couldn't sleep that night. The book was still in my hands, the pages stained with the weight of what I'd just learned. The words were dancing in my mind, refusing to leave. A sacrifice. 7 years, something in the woods. And the people of Rosewood, my neighbors, had been keeping it hidden, buried beneath layers of silence and fear. But what did they want from me? Why was I suddenly a part of their dark history? I kept thinking about the figure in the woods, its glowing eyes, and the voice that had called out to me. You shouldn't be here. Was that a warning? Or was it something else, something more personal? Something telling me I was about to become the next part of their twisted ritual. I knew I couldn't go back to sleep. The truth had been cracked open, and now I had to understand it. I had to find out everything, because I wasn't about to become their next victim, but the town was already watching me. I could feel it. The moment I stepped outside, I could sense the eyes on me, people peering out from behind curtains, faces hiding in shadows. They knew I knew. I didn't go back to the diner the next morning. Ms. Jenkins had already made it clear that no one was going to help me. The rest of the town? The same. They weren't going to talk. But I couldn't stay in the dark any longer. So I went to the one place no one seemed to care about, the old cemetery at the edge of town. It was quiet there, eerily so, with the weight of history hanging over the place. The gravestones were old, some of them cracked, others half buried in the ground. But I wasn't here for the dead. I was here for the living. The ones who had buried this secret deep beneath the earth, hoping it would stay forgotten. I wandered through the cemetery, hoping to find some kind of clue, something that would explain the symbols of the ritual, something that might give me a way out. But the further I walked, the more I felt like I was being pulled towards something. There was an energy here, a presence, a feeling that crept up my spine and made my skin crawl. That's when I saw it. A fresh grave, only a few days old. The earth on top was still loose, the mound high, like the person had just been buried. There was no headstone, no name, just dirt. I knelt down, my hands trembling as I brushed the soil away. The ground was cold, and the deeper I dug, the colder it became. But I didn't stop. I had to know. I had to understand what the town had been hiding. Then my fingers hit something solid. A box. It wasn't big, but it was heavy. I pulled it out, my heart pounding, my breath shallow as I pried it open. Inside was an old journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. It was the same as the book I'd seen in the library, the same symbols etched on the cover. I opened it, my eyes scanning the words. And then I saw it, the truth written in black ink. The town had always kept the secret of the ritual buried. But it was written in the journal everything. It was a pact. A blood pact made long ago with something ancient. The people of Rosewood had agreed to keep it contained, to feed it every 7 years, to offer a life to keep it dormant. But if the pact was broken, if the offering stopped, the thing would wake up. It would destroy them all. The journal described the last sacrifice 7 years ago. I didn't recognize the name. But it didn't matter. The town was still keeping the pact alive, ensuring that no one would ever escape. And now, it was my turn. I dropped the journal, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I could hear the whispers again, this time louder, closer, almost as if they were inside my head. You shouldn't be here. I looked up, but there was no one around. No one except the trees. And the cemetery. The town, the weight of it. All pressed down on me, heavier than I could bear. I had no choice but to run. To leave, but as I turned to leave the cemetery, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A figure, standing at the far end of the graveyard. It wasn't human. It was tall, thin, shrouded in shadows. The same figure I had seen in the woods. The same glowing eyes. The same presence that felt like it was suffocating me. It spoke again. Its voice like a hiss, like something that hadn't been used in centuries. You're too late. I didn't wait for it to say anything else. I turned and ran, as fast as I could, back toward the town, toward my house. But I could feel the thing following me, getting closer with every step. I made it to my front door and slammed it shut behind me, locking the deadbolt with trembling hands. My heart was racing. I could barely breathe, but I couldn't escape. I couldn't outrun it. The thing in the woods. The thing tied to this town. I had seen too much. I knew too much. And now it was coming for me. That night, the whispers returned. They didn't stop. They came from the walls, the floor, the air itself. They circled around me, calling my name. And I couldn't escape. But there was one thing I didn't know yet. One thing that kept me alive. The town wasn't going to just let me go. They needed me. I was part of their plan now. And unless I did something, unless I acted quickly, I would become the next sacrifice. But I wasn't ready to die. Not yet. I didn't know how long I had before the town came for me, or worse, before the thing in the woods did. All I knew was that I had to get out of Rosewood. But as I sat in my house, shaking, barely able to think, it became clear that leaving wasn't going to be that simple. The town had a way of holding on to its own. The moment I stepped foot out of that door, they'd be watching. The figure in the cemetery, the whispers that followed me everywhere. I wasn't just being hunted by something in the woods. I was being hunted by the people of Rosewood too. It hit me then. It wasn't just about the ritual anymore. This wasn't a town that was just scared of the thing in the woods. They served it. They had been offering their sacrifices willingly for generations, believing that keeping the creature satisfied was the only thing that would keep them alive. But there was something else, something darker. The town itself wasn't innocent. It was as much a prisoner as I was, and they had become complicit in it. I had a choice to make. I could try to run, risk everything, or I could confront them. Confront the town. Find a way to break the pact before the creature woke up and destroyed us all. I wasn't sure what I was looking for when I decided to leave the house that night. But as soon as I stepped onto the street, I felt it, the same feeling I'd had when I first arrived. Eyes, watching. I knew they were there. I couldn't see them, but I could feel the weight of their gaze on me. I made my way to the center of town, trying to stay in the shadows, trying not to draw attention to myself. It was late, well past midnight, and the streets were completely empty, but that didn't mean the town was. I could hear faint sounds, soft whispers, barely audible, but unmistakable. They were all around me, seeping from the cracks in the buildings, from behind every corner. They weren't speaking words anymore, just quiet, rhythmic sounds, like the chant of an old prayer dot. It was then I saw the first one. A figure stepped out of the shadows. At first, I thought it was just another person from town, someone I hadn't met. But when I saw the eyes glowing faintly in the dark, I froze. "You shouldn't be here," they said. The voice was deep, guttural, and I recognized it immediately. It was the same voice from the cemetery, the same voice I had heard in the woods. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. My legs felt like they were made of stone. The figure took a step closer, and as it did, I realized it wasn't alone. There were more of them. Dozens, emerging from the darkness, their faces obscured, but their eyes glowing like candles in the night. "You're the one," the figure continued, its voice almost soft now, as if pitying me. "You're the one who will break the cycle." I didn't understand. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaking. The figure tilted its head, like it was trying to make sense of my question. "You think you're the first? You think you're the only one who's ever tried to stop it?" I tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. The town was closing in on me, the figure standing just beyond my reach, surrounding me. I could hear the whispers now clearer, like they were coming from every single person in the town, all speaking in unison. "The pact must be kept," they said, their voices in perfect harmony. "The sacrifice must be made, or it will all end. You will end it." I felt like I was suffocating. The pressure of the town, the weight of their eyes, it was too much. But then, one of the figures stepped forward, Miss Jenkins. She was wearing the same blank expression I had seen on her face before, but now there was something in her eyes. Fear, regret. She spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't understand, child. We've all been part of it. We don't have a choice. If we stop, if we refuse to make the sacrifice, it will come for us all. It will destroy Rosewood. It will destroy everything." I wanted to scream at her, to ask her how they could live with themselves. How could they choose to keep this monster alive? But before I could say anything, the others spoke again, their voices growing louder. "It's too late now," they said. "The sacrifice has been chosen, and you can't stop it." I looked around at their faces. Their eyes, glowing in the dark, were full of resignation. This wasn't just about survival. This was about control. Fear had chained them, and now they were all slaves to it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fight them all, how to stop it. The creature in the woods, the ritual, the town, it was too much for one person to take on. But then, something clicked. I thought back to the journal, the part that spoke about the power of the ritual, the sacrifice. It wasn't just about offering a life, it was about renewal. Every time they made a sacrifice, the creature would be bound for another 7 years. But the binding was weak. It was a cycle that had to be broken. I wasn't here just to stop it, I was here to end it. "You're wrong," I whispered, the words coming from somewhere deep inside me. "I can stop it. I can break the pact." I saw doubt flicker in their eyes. They didn't believe me. But I did. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I had to. And then, the whispers stopped. The cold that had settled over the town lifted for just a moment. In that brief silence, I felt it a shift, like The earth beneath my feet had suddenly changed direction. The thing in the woods had felt me. It was awake, Dot. It was coming. I couldn't breathe. The moment I stepped into the woods, everything about the night felt different. The chill was sharper, like a blade cutting through my skin. The trees loomed over me, their twisted branches stretching out like dark hands, trying to grab me, pull me in. The whispers were back, louder than before, their voices curling around me, suffocating me, warning me, you shouldn't be here. It wasn't just the creature anymore. It was the town. The people of Rosewood, they were still watching, still waiting. But I couldn't turn back. Not now. Not after everything I had uncovered. I had to stop it. I had to find the heart of it. All and destroy it before it destroyed me, and before it took anyone else. The deeper I walked, the more the atmosphere seemed to shift. It was like the woods were alive, like they were breathing with me, with every step I took. The air became thick, almost suffocating, and the ground beneath my boots felt unstable, shifting with each footfall. The further I ventured, the more I could feel it, the pull of something ancient, something dark, pulling me deeper into its lair. The creature, I kept moving, ignoring the whispers now. They were like a dull hum in the background, trying to distract me, to turn me away. I couldn't let it. There was only one way to end this. I had to find the source of the ritual, the altar, the place where it all began. If I could destroy that, maybe I could destroy the creature along with it. The trees seemed to part as I entered a clearing. At the center, bathed in a sickly green light, was a stone altar. It was old, too old, but unmistakable. The altar had been used countless times, each time feeding the beast, keeping it dormant for another 7 years. But now the cycle had to end. The moment I stepped forward, the ground beneath me cracked. A deep, rumbling growl vibrated through the earth, and the whispers turned into screams. The creature was close. I could feel its presence, its eyes, burning through the darkness, locking onto me. You shouldn't have come. The voice was low, almost as if it was coming from within the earth itself. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I had to focus. I had to stop it. I reached for the journal in my pocket, trembling as I pulled it out. I had read it over and over, memorized every word about the ritual, about the sacrifice, about the power the altar held. But the final piece of the puzzle was missing. There had to be something more, Dot, and then I saw it. The symbols, etched into the altar, glowing faintly in the darkness. These weren't the same symbols I had seen before. These were older, more complex. And the moment I recognized them, something clicked in my mind. The sacrifice was the key, but not just any sacrifice. It had to be pure. The blood had to be fresh. It wasn't about offering a life. It was about making the creature believe it. Had been fed. The realization hit me hard. The townspeople hadn't been offering real sacrifices. They had been tricking it. They had been keeping it at bay with fake blood, false promises. But now it was awake. It knew I was here. It was coming for me. I could hear its footsteps heavy, dragging like something ancient was rising from the earth itself. And in the back of my mind, I heard the whispers again. But this time, they were not warnings. They were screams. The thing in the woods was coming, and it was angry. I looked. Back at the altar, my heart racing. There was no time left. If I didn't do something, it would be too late. Without thinking, I grabbed the knife from my pocket, the same knife I had taken from the cemetery, and raised it high. The metal gleamed in the dark, sharp and ready. But before I could bring it down, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around, and there it was. The creature. It was tall, impossibly tall, its form shifting in and out of focus. Its body wasn't solid, but a mass of shadows, constantly swirling, twisting, like smoke caught in a windstorm. But its eyes, they were the only thing that remained constant. Glowing with an eerie, sickly yellow light, they locked onto mine. It spoke, its voice like 1,000 voices, each one twisted in agony. "You cannot stop me." I couldn't move. My legs were frozen. The creature was here, and there was nothing I could do. But then, something strange happened. The ground beneath me cracked again, but this time it wasn't the creature's doing, it was the altar. The stone had begun to tremble, its surface cracking, splintering apart. I didn't know what was happening, but the altar was falling apart. Crumbling under the pressure, the creature roared. It was furious, its form twisting violently in the air, its eyes flashing with rage. I didn't think. I just acted. I plunged the knife into the altar, right where the symbols were carved into the stone. The instant the blade made contact, everything exploded. The ground shook violently, the trees around me snapping in half. The air itself seemed to catch fire, burning with an intense heat that I could feel through my skin. The creature screamed no, howled as it was pulled, dragged, back into the depths of the earth. But it wasn't over. The altar was still glowing, the energy it had been feeding. I'm still alive, still strong. The creature hadn't been banished, it had been weakened. I didn't hesitate. I pulled the knife free and drove it down again. And again, and again. With each strike, the creature's screams grew weaker, the light in its eyes dimming, until, finally, with one last cry, the altar shattered completely. The darkness lifted. The air cleared. The earth stopped shaking. And in the silence that followed, I could feel the weight lift from my shoulders. It was over. But I wasn't sure if I had won. The woods were still haunted, the town still cursed. The cycle had been broken, but the scars would never fade. And as I turned to leave, I heard one last whisper, faint but clear. "You have no idea what you've done." I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I didn't wait. I couldn't. My heart was pounding in my chest as I ran through the woods, the once familiar trees now foreign and twisted, like they were closing in on me. The whispers still lingered in the air, but there was something different about them now. They weren't the same warnings or pleas for me to stop. These were desperate, furious cries, like the woods itself was cursing me for what I had just done. I didn't know if I had truly stopped it. The creature in the woods, the thing that had controlled this town for centuries, couldn't just be gone, could it? My thoughts raced, the adrenaline surging through me as I stumbled through the underbrush, trying to get back to the clearing, back to the town. The only thing I knew for certain was that I had to get out of the woods. The closer I got to the edge of the forest, the more the weight of what I'd done pressed down on me. I had broken the pact. I had destroyed the altar. I had faced the thing in the woods, but at what cost? I finally broke through the trees and found myself standing on the outskirts of Rosewood. The town looked the same as it always had, quiet, peaceful, almost too peaceful. But something was off. It was too still. There were no lights in the windows, no sounds of cars passing by. It was like the entire town was holding its breath, waiting. I stepped forward, my feet crunching on the gravel path that led toward the town center. But as I moved closer, I noticed something in the distance. A figure standing at the edge of the cemetery, just outside of the church. It was hard to make out in the dark, but the faint glow of the streetlight illuminated a familiar silhouette. It was Miss Jenkins. Her figure stood motionless, like she was waiting for something. Watching. I couldn't help but walk toward her, the weight of everything hanging over me like a storm cloud. As I got closer, she turned to face me. Her eyes, those same eyes I had seen in the woods, were now wide, frantic. She looked terrified. "You shouldn't have done it," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You have no idea what you've done." "I stopped it," I said, my voice louder than I intended. "I stopped it. Rosewood is free." She shook her head, her hands trembling. "No, you don't understand. It's not over. It can't be." "Then what the hell do you mean?" I demanded, my frustration bubbling over. "I broke the altar. The creature is gone. It has to be over." Her face twisted in anguish. It's never over. You don't kill it. You can't. It just waits. It sleeps, but it always comes back. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? The ritual, the cycle. It's not about killing it. It's about keeping it at bay. The pact, it wasn't a choice, you see. It was a law. A law that governed Rosewood. You can't escape it. You can't escape him. I stepped back, my mind spinning. You're telling me that I didn't stop it? Her voice dropped to a whisper, almost too soft to hear. You've only woken him up. You've set him free, and now he's angry. He'll come for you, and he'll come for all of us. I didn't know what to say. My legs felt like they were made of lead. I looked around the town. It was still too quiet, too still. The streets should have been empty, yes, but it felt like something was waiting to break through. Like something was about to happen. Then I heard it. A low rumble coming from deep in the earth. It was a sound I had felt before, deep in the woods. The ground beneath my feet began to shake again, just like it had when I destroyed the altar. But this time, the sound was different, louder, angrier. I turned back to Ms. Jenkins. What's happening? What do I do now? She stared at me, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. Run. Run as far as you can. Get out of Rosewood. The creature, it's not bound to the woods. It's not bound to anything. It will find you. It will always find you. Before I could say anything else, the ground shook again, stronger this time. The light from the street lamps flickered. And then I heard the scream. It was a scream like nothing I had ever heard before. A scream that could only come from the depths of hell itself. A noise so unnatural, it vibrated in my bones. It was the creature. It was free. And it was angry. I turned to run, but it was too late. From the shadows of the cemetery, a massive figure emerged, tall, too tall for any human, its body shifting between solid and smoke. Its eyes were glowing, burning like twin coals in the night. And it was coming for me. I started running, my legs pumping, my breath ragged, but I could feel the creature behind me. Its presence was suffocating. It was closing in. The town was no longer safe. It had never been safe. I ran through the empty streets, my mind a blur, the creature's roar echoing in my ears, urging me to run faster. But I could feel it getting closer, feel its hot breath on my neck. I made it to the outskirts of town, my heart racing. But just as I reached the edge of the forest, I turned and looked back one last time. The creature was there, standing at the edge of the town, its eyes locked onto mine. I could hear it whispering my name, a low, guttural sound, as if it was calling me, summoning me. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew I couldn't stay. Not in Rosewood. Not with the creature still out there, waiting. I didn't wait another second. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but I pushed myself harder, running as fast as I could. The creature's footsteps were getting closer, shaking the ground beneath me with each step it took. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. The air was thick with the smell of something burning, something wrong, like the town itself was starting to crumble away. The streets of Rosewood blurred around me. The houses, the trees, everything was a shadowy blur in the distance. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I couldn't tell if it was from fear or the exhaustion creeping into my bones. But no matter how fast I ran, I could feel the creature drawing closer, its presence suffocating, like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. And then I saw it, the outskirts of the town. The road leading out to the highway. It was my only escape. But something felt wrong. The air felt colder now, sharper. The shadows were longer, darker. I could hear it again, the deep rumbling, the growl that came from the ground. The creature was still behind me, its roar shaking the very air I breathed. I didn't have much time. I pushed myself forward, my breath coming out in quick gasps. I could feel the chill in the air, that coldness that seemed to seep into my very bones. My skin was covered in a thin layer of sweat, but my hands were freezing. I didn't know how long I had been running, but the road ahead of me seemed endless. Distant lights of the highway were still far away, too far. And then, just as I thought I might collapse, I heard the sound again. The growl. It was closer now. And it wasn't coming from behind me, it was coming from ahead. I froze, my heart racing. The highway was still too far, but the path ahead was blocked. A figure stood in the middle of the road, tall, dark, and completely still. My legs refused to move, my mind screaming at me to run, to turn around, to do anything but stand there. But I couldn't look away. It was like the creature itself had placed a shadow over the road, like it had laid claim to this place too. The figure slowly turned its head toward me. I could see its face now, but it wasn't a face at all. Just dark, shifting shadows, swirling around as though it was a mass of smoke, unable to form a true shape. But the eyes, those eyes glowed, burning like fire in the night. I could feel them staring right through me, hearing every thought, every fear. My breath caught in my throat. No, I whispered, the word trembling in my chest. It was here. It had found me. The figure's form flickered, and then, like a bolt of lightning, it lunged forward. But before it could reach me, I snapped out of my trance and took off running. Again, my legs pumping harder, faster than I ever thought possible. I could hear the thing behind me, its voice now a low, inhuman growl. It was right there, right behind me. I dared not look back, but I could feel its presence, its anger, radiating from every direction. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward me. Every flicker of light cast by the distant streetlights seemed to shift, as though the town itself was turning against me. But the highway was closer now. I could see the headlights of cars in the distance. I was almost there. I just had to make it. I couldn't let this thing that had haunted Rosewood for so long, catch me, with every step. The fear weighed heavier on me, but there was something else too. A sense of determination. A sense that I had to survive, no matter the cost. And then, the first car passed me. I didn't know if it was the creature's doing, or if it was just my fear, but the car didn't slow down. The headlights blinded me, and for a moment, I was lost in the light. But then it was gone, and I could hear the rumble of its engine fade into the distance. But it didn't matter. There would be more cars. There had to be. I kept running, my mind racing. My breath burned in my chest, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. The creature was still behind me. I could feel its eyes boring into my back, its power reaching for me, pulling me in. And then, just as I reached the edge of the highway, I heard it again, the roar, the scream that tore through the night like a wave crashing against the shore. It was the creature, its fury rising. I looked behind me, just for a second, and what I saw made my stomach drop. The creature was there, its form shifting in and out of existence, the shadows twisting around it like smoke in the wind. But this time, it was no longer just one thing. There were more. Hundreds of them, emerging from the woods, from the shadows, from the town itself. They were all around me, rising up, filling the road, the air, until I couldn't see anything but them. The glow of their eyes was like fire, their shapes like nightmares that couldn't be outrun. And then, in a blur, I was yanked to the side, pulled into the ditch by a pair of strong hands. A voice, familiar yet distant, whispered into my ear, "You shouldn't have stayed." It was Ms. Jenkins. I turned to her, breathless. "What are you doing? We have to get out of here." She shook her head, her face pale, her eyes wild. "They're not gone. They can't be stopped. Don't you understand? The creature isn't the only thing. It's just part of the cycle. You broke the pact. You broke it, and now they'll never stop coming." I stared at her, my heart sinking. I wanted to scream, to shout at her, to demand answers, but I couldn't. The creature, or whatever it was had begun to close in on us. And then, in the distance, I saw it, the glow of headlights. A car. It was coming toward us. The creature, the darkness, all of it seemed to part as the car drew closer. The headlights pushed back the shadows, forced them to retreat. But it wasn't enough. It wouldn't be enough. As the car drew closer, I could see the fear in the driver's eyes. They were already too late, but there was nothing left to do but run. The headlights of the car grew brighter, blinding me for a moment as it approached, cutting through the darkness. I ran toward it, waving my arms, desperate. But as it neared, I saw the driver's face, a man, wide-eyed, panic written across his features. He wasn't slowing down. "Stop!" I screamed, my voice raw, but the car didn't slow. It kept coming, faster, faster. I could hear the screeching of tires against the gravel. And then nothing. The car passed me in an instant, its headlights illuminating the shadows behind it, pushing the creatures back for just a brief moment. But it didn't matter. I froze, staring after the car as it disappeared into the night. The light from the headlights was gone, the road once again swallowed by the darkness. I turned to Miss Jenkins. "What do we do?" "What now?" She didn't answer. She was staring into the distance, her face pale, as if the sight of the car had drained her of all hope. The ground shook again, this time harder. The rumble came from all directions, like the earth itself was alive, twisting, turning beneath us. The creatures, the shadows were closing in again, and this time I could see them clearly. Dozens of them, tall and unnaturally thin, their forms flickering in and out of existence. Their glowing eyes locked onto me. One by one, they emerged from the trees, from the ground itself, their movements jerky and unnatural. I could feel the weight of their presence, pressing down on me, suffocating me. Ms. Jenkins grabbed my arm. "We have to go," she whispered urgently, pulling me toward the woods. But there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I didn't know what else to do. My mind was spinning, my heart racing, as the creatures closed in on us. The road was behind us, but we couldn't make it back to town. The town itself, Rosewood, no longer safe. It never had been. "We're too late," Miss Jenkins said softly, almost to herself. "It's always been like this." I could barely hear her over the pounding of my own heart. I could feel the creatures all around us, their eyes burning, their growls vibrating through the air. "We can't outrun them," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "We can't escape." Miss Jenkins stopped and turned to face me. Her eyes were filled with a kind of resigned sorrow, like she had known this day would come. "There's no escape, not for anyone, not anymore." The creatures were almost upon us now. Their figures loomed larger, their shapes more defined. But just as I thought it was over, a bright light pierced the darkness. Another car. Another. One. This time, the headlights weren't just cutting through the fog, they were blinding. The creatures recoiled, their bodies twisting in agony, screeching as the light pushed them back. The shadows seemed to evaporate in the face of this new light, as if the darkness itself was afraid. I didn't know who was in the car, but I wasn't about to question it. I ran toward the light, toward the hope that I had been so desperately clinging to get in. A voice shouted from the car, a man's voice. It was deep, firm, with a tone of authority that made my heart race even faster. I didn't hesitate. I ran toward the car, my feet pounding against the ground. The creatures shrieked again, but they were now retreating into the woods, pushed back by the powerful beam of light. Ms. Jenkins hesitated for a moment, but I yanked her arm, pulling her with me toward the car. We both jumped into the back seat, breathless, as the car shot forward. The man behind the wheel didn't say a word. He just drove, fast. He didn't look at us, didn't ask any questions. It felt like we were moving in a blur, just getting away from the nightmare that had become Rosewood. The car swerved off the road, bouncing through the dirt, racing along a path I had never seen before. And then, just when I thought we might be safe, the man's voice broke through the silence. "You're not safe." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I turned toward him, wide-eyed, but he was still staring ahead, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. "Why?" I began to ask, but he cut me off. "The thing you woke up. It's not just a creature. It's a curse. Rosewood was never meant to be free. It was always meant to stay locked in the cycle. You broke it, and now it's out. It won't stop until it finds you." I shook my head. I stopped it. I destroyed the altar. I broke the ritual. "It's over." He glanced at me, his face dark and grim. "You don't understand. It's never over. You've opened the door. The creature, it's just one part of it. The real curse is the town itself. The land is corrupted. You can't outrun it." I felt the blood drain from my face as the car sped faster, pushing us further into the unknown. Then what do we do? How do we stop it? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowed the car, the headlights dimming as we passed an old, decaying sign. I squinted at it, but the name was barely legible. "Welcome to Raven's Hollow," the sign read. I turned back to him, my heart sinking. "Where are we?" The man looked at me, his face hard, his eyes filled with something dark, something ancient. "This is where it all began, and this is where it ends." The car came to a slow stop in front of an old, decrepit building. The place was more of a ruin than a structure, with ivy creeping over broken windows and moss clinging to the crumbling stone walls. The sign at the entrance was faded, barely readable, but I could make out the words Raven's Hollow Church. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the trees around it seemed to sway unnaturally, as though they were alive and watching. Man didn't say a word as he turned off the engine. For a moment, there was silence, an eerie silence that made my skin crawl. The night was colder here, the shadows longer, the air heavier. My heart was racing, my mind reeling. This place, this Raven's Hollow, felt wrong in a way that was beyond my understanding. I looked out of the car window, feeling the weight of the place pressing in on me, and then turned back to the man. He was still staring ahead, his grip tight on the wheel. His face was drawn, tired, like he hadn't slept in years. "We're not safe here," I said, my voice shaking. "What is this place? What's happening?" He sighed deeply, then turned to look at me, his eyes dark and resigned. "This is where it started. This is where it always starts." I glanced at Ms. Jenkins, who had been silent ever since we'd entered the car. Her eyes were wide, her face ashen, and she was staring at the building as though it held some kind of terrible power over her. "Miss Jenkins," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what is this place? What's going on?" Her eyes flickered to mine, but she didn't answer immediately. She was trembling now, something raw and real in her expression. "Raven's Hollow, it's the heart of the curse. The altar in the woods," she paused, her voice cracking. "It was just a part of it, a symbol. The real power lies here, in the church." I could feel the blood drain from my face. "The church?" I repeated, my mind struggling to catch up. "So, it's not over? You said the creature would come for us." But she shook her head quickly, her voice almost pleading. "It's not just the creature. It's everything. You don't understand. Rosewood was created by this curse, not just cursed by it. Every person in that town was part of the ritual, part of the pact, even if they didn't know it. The creature was just the guardian. The real force, the real evil, is right here." The man spoke up then, his voice sharp, cutting through the thick silence. "The pact wasn't just about keeping the creature bound to the woods. It was about keeping this church, this town alive, keeping it in a constant state of death and rebirth. Every cycle, every year, the town had to offer something to the curse to keep it dormant. But once you broke that altar, broke the ritual, it all unraveled. And now, everything comes flooding out." My chest tightened. "So this is it. We can't fix it. There's no stopping it. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he opened the car door and stepped out into the cold night air, his heavy boots crunching on the gravel as he walked toward the church. "We don't have time to fix it," he muttered under his breath, "but we can try to contain it." Ms. Jenkins hesitated for a moment before following him. I looked at the church once more, its crumbling walls like the skeletal remains of something long forgotten, and then I followed them both. The air inside the church was thick with dust, the smell of decay choking every breath I took. The floorboards creaked under our weight as we stepped inside, the only sound in the vast emptiness. The walls were lined with faded pews, their wooden surfaces cracked and worn, as if no one had stepped foot inside for decades. The altar at the front of the church was covered in a heavy layer of dust, the stained glass windows above it shattered long ago. But there was something about the altar, something that made my skin crawl. I could feel it, a presence, as though the darkness itself was seeping from the stone beneath me. "This is it," the man said, his voice barely a whisper. He walked toward the altar, his footsteps slow, deliberate. "This is where it began, and this is where it ends." "Wait," I said, suddenly feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "What do you mean ends? You said we couldn't stop it." He turned to look at me, his face full of regret. "We can't stop it. But maybe, just maybe, we can trap it. We can keep it contained for a while longer, long enough for you to get out." I didn't understand. "You want to trap it here?" Miss Jenkins spoke up then, her voice distant, as though she was somewhere far away. "The curse doesn't just live in the town. It lives in the land, in the earth beneath it. The only way to contain it is to bind it again, to do what we should have done all those years ago." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "You mean, perform the ritual again?" Her face was pale, the terror in her eyes growing with each passing second. "No, not a ritual, a sacrifice. The creature, the curse, it feeds off blood, off pain, off suffering. It's always taken something, someone, and it will continue to do so until it is satisfied." My stomach twisted. "You can't be serious." The man nodded grimly. "It's the only way to contain it, the only way to stop the cycle from repeating. We have to give it something. And the only thing it wants is what's already inside of you." I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. The man's words hit me like a punch to the stomach. "What do you mean, what's already inside of me?" Ms. Jenkins's eyes met mine, her face a mask of anguish. "It wants the blood of someone who has broken the pact, someone who's been marked by the curse, someone like you." I shook my head, my breath coming out in short gasps. No, I didn't. This isn't real." You're saying the creature wants me? Because I broke the ritual." The man's voice was low and calm, as though he had accepted the horror long ago. "The curse doesn't just want your blood, it wants your soul. You're the one who set it free. You opened the door that kept the creature and everything else locked away. Now it needs you to complete the cycle. It needs to feed off the one who caused the damage." My knees went weak and I had to lean against the broken pew beside me to keep myself from falling. It felt like the walls of the church were closing in, like the very air was getting heavier, suffocating me. I could feel it then, the same presence from the woods, from the altar pressing down on me. The creature wasn't just after me. It was after everything I'd brought with me. "I don't have a choice," I whispered. Miss Jenkins stepped forward, her hands trembling, and for the first time since I met her, I saw fear in her eyes. Real, raw fear. "We all have a choice," she said softly. "You can give yourself to it, or you can let it destroy everything." I stared at her, a sick feeling rising in my stomach. "And you think I'm just supposed to sacrifice myself? Just give up and let it take me?" The man, who had been silent until then, spoke up. "It's not just about giving yourself. It's about stopping the curse from consuming the town, from spreading beyond this place. If you don't make the sacrifice, if you don't complete the cycle, it will never end. It will keep going, and the town will bleed, and everything you love will be dragged into the darkness. I felt a shiver run down my spine. The weight of his words was sinking in, and with it, the understanding that there was no way out of this. The town of Rosewood, no, the whole of Raven's Hollow had been doomed long before I came. This wasn't about me. It was about something much older, something much worse. I looked at the altar again, the shadows flickering across its surface, and a sick realization started creeping into my mind. This wasn't a choice. This was a trap, and I had already walked right into it. Is this it then? I asked, my voice breaking. I just die here? Is that what you're saying? The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he moved to the altar, his movements slow, deliberate. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small and old. Tarnished key. This is the key to keeping it sealed. It's the only way. He held the key in front of me, his eyes never leaving mine. We can trap the creature. Again, but only if you're willing to sacrifice everything. Sacrifice everything, I echoed, my heart racing. You mean, what? Me? Miss Jenkins nodded, her voice low. The key doesn't work without the blood of the one who opened the door. The one who broke the pact, you. Your blood will seal the curse again. But there's a price. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Price? The sacrifice isn't just your life, she continued, her voice trembling. It's your memories, your past, everything that makes you who you are. You'll lose it all. You'll become part of the land, part of the curse. You'll be forgotten by everyone, even by yourself. It's the only way to close the door. The words hung in the air, suffocating me, and for a moment, all I could hear was the low growl from deep within the church's walls. Like the creature was inching closer, just waiting for me to make my decision. I felt my pulse in my ears, my thoughts racing. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to give up everything, my life, my memories, everything I'd ever known. I wanted to escape. I wanted to run. But the truth settled like a stone in my stomach. There was no escaping this. I looked at the man, at Miss Jenkins, and I could see it in their eyes. They'd already made their choices. They were already part of this place, bound by a history I couldn't even begin to understand. I was just the latest person to walk into the trap, but I still had a choice. I had to stop this. I had to save what I could. I stepped forward, my hand shaking as I took the key from the man's hand. I'll do it. Miss Jenkins didn't say anything, but she stepped back, as if giving me space to make my final decision. The air in the church grew colder as I walked toward the altar, every step heavy with the weight of what I was about to do. I could feel the creature's presence pressing in around me, like 1,000 invisible hands reaching for my soul. But there was no turning back. There never had been. I placed the key on the altar, and then, as the ground shook beneath me, I raised my arm and sliced my palm open with a jagged shard of glass I found on the floor. The pain was sharp, immediate, but it didn't matter. Blood poured from my hand, staining the altar, staining the very land itself, and then the world went black. I woke up to a sharp, biting cold. My body was stiff, aching, and when I opened my eyes, all I saw was darkness. The church, the altar, everything, the weight of it all was gone. My breath quickened, and I sat up, the ground beneath me rough, like gravel or stone. But it wasn't the ground that confused me. It was the silence. There was no sound of the creatures. No screeching, no rumbling. Just an eerie, unnatural quiet. I stood, my legs weak beneath me. As I stumbled to my feet, I realized my hand, the one I'd sliced open, felt normal. The pain was gone. The wound was healed. It was like it never happened at all. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the cold stone walls of the church. but there was something different. The walls were smooth, too smooth. The cold wasn't natural. It was as if the walls themselves were alive. The shadows, once filled with life and terror, were now still. Nothing moved. It was as though the world itself had frozen in place. I felt a strange weight in my chest, a sensation like I was being watched, but I couldn't see anything, nothing at all. I started walking toward the door, my mind in a fog. What had happened? When I reached the church's entrance, I opened the door. The world outside was different. It was still night, but the sky had a strange, pale hue to it, almost sickly. The trees around the church stood still, their twisted branches like dark fingers stretching toward the heavens. But they didn't move. There was no wind, no sound of animals. Everything was dead. I stepped out into the yard, my shoes crunching on the gravel path. But then I stopped. Something was wrong. The town Rosewood was gone. There was no sign of it, no buildings, no streetlights. Just an endless, empty stretch of land. It was as though the town had never existed. A cold dread settled over me. I turned back to the church. It was still standing, but it looked different. Like it was fading, dissolving into the air. Had it always been this way? I couldn't remember. I looked around, feeling a panic rising in my chest. The man and Miss Jenkins, they had to be here. They couldn't have just disappeared. I called out, my voice cracking. "Hello? Anyone? Where are you?" No answer. I tried to move toward where the town should have been, but the land was barren, untouched, empty. There was nothing but the eerie silence. And then a sound. A whisper. It was faint at first, barely audible, but it was there. It came from behind me, from the direction of the church. I turned slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. And there, standing in the doorway, was Miss Jenkins, but her face, her eyes were empty, hollow, like she had never truly been alive. She was like the land itself, fading into something that didn't belong in the world. "You," she whispered, her voice distant. "You freed it. You let it out. There's no going back. Now, Miss Jenkins." My voice trembled, barely a whisper, as I took a hesitant step toward her. Her figure was flickering, like the reflection in a broken mirror, but she stood still, silent. The shadow of the church loomed behind her, but there was something wrong with it. The windows were black, the door was ajar, and there was an oppressive, choking air that emanated from it. "You shouldn't have come," she said again, her voice haunting. "You should have stayed. It was always meant to be like this. The town, the curse, it's all connected. And now..." She paused, and her hollow eyes seemed to pierce through me. "Now you're part of it." I took another step forward, and as I did, I noticed the ground beneath my feet had begun to shift. The stone beneath my shoes cracked and split, revealing black, pulsing veins of dark energy, like the land itself was infected. The whispers grew louder. "Help me," I whispered, my chest tight with panic. "Please, what is happening? What did I do?" Miss Jenkins's face twisted into something unrecognizable, like a grimace of pain mixed with pity. "You didn't do anything. You became part of it. The land feeds on guilt, on souls that break. The pact, you freed the creature, but it wasn't the creature that mattered. It was what it fed on." I shook my head, my thoughts in a spiral. No, this can't be real. There has to be a way out of here. I can't. There is no way out. Her words cut through the night like ice. "You've already given the sacrifice. You sealed it. But you don't understand. The curse never needed you to die. It needed you to forget." I froze, the realization hitting me like a blow. "Forget." Her smile was almost sad. "Yes. Forget everything. Forget the town. Forget your life. Forget what you were before this happened. Become part of the land. That's the true sacrifice. You'll never escape it. You'll never remember who you were." The world around me began to warp, the edges blurring. The church behind her was fading faster now, its stone crumbling into dust and ash. I looked down at my hands, but they weren't mine anymore. They were cold, pale, almost empty, like I had never truly been human. I wasn't sure if I was breathing anymore. Suddenly, Miss Jenkins's face distorted, the hollow eyes widening. "You should have stayed. Now there's no escape." The ground beneath me cracked open, and everything went black. I don't know how much time passed. Hours? Days? Or had it been minutes? I couldn't tell. When I woke up again, it was as if I had never been asleep at all. I was standing in front of the same altar in the same church, the same strange coldness surrounding me. But everything had changed. The altar was whole again, the space pristine, untouched by time or decay. There was no sign of Miss Jenkins, the man, or the creatures. It was as if the world had reset itself. Everything was back in place, like nothing had happened. I felt disoriented, as if I was waking from a nightmare, but still trapped inside it. I turned around, looking at the church. The walls were smooth, the air crisp. But then, my eyes were drawn to the stained glass window above the altar. It flickered, its light warping. And then I saw someone in the window. I gasped. It was me, but not me. My face was distorted, my eyes hollow, staring out at me from the glass like a reflection of a person who was no longer whole. I stepped back, my body shuddering with a mixture of fear and realization. There was no escape from this place, from the curse. I was the curse now. It was then that I felt the true weight of what had happened. The world around me felt too heavy, too suffocating. The curse had always been tied to Rosewood, to Raven's Hollow, but it had never truly been bound to the land. It had always been tied to the souls that walked through it. And now, I was one of them. The reflection in the window was no longer just a figure. It was me, my face contorted in a silent scream, trapped in the glass. I reached out, my hand trembling, but the figure in the glass didn't move. It was static, stuck. And then, the whispers came again. They weren't in the air, they were in my mind. "You're one of them now." I tried to turn away, but the church felt like it was closing in on me, its walls narrowing, trapping me in its grip. The cycle is complete. Time had lost all meaning. I had no idea how long I'd been trapped in the church, staring at the reflection of myself in the glass. There was no exit, no way out. The whispers had become louder, more insistent. The voices of the people who had walked through this place before me, their souls forever bound to the curse. I had become part of the land, part of the curse. The town of Rosewood, no, Raven's Hollow was nothing more than a place where souls were fed upon, their lives erased, their memories forgotten. But I could still feel the remnants of who I was, somewhere deep inside. There was still a part of me that remembered the world outside. The world before. It was fading, but it was still there. And in that fading moment, I realized something. The creature, the curse, it could never be fully defeated. The land would always hunger, and the cycle would continue. But maybe I could break it. Maybe I could find a way to stop this. But as soon as the thought entered my mind, the walls of the church trembled, as if something was awakening from deep beneath the earth. Something old, something angry, something that had been waiting for the curse to complete its cycle. The creature was still alive, and it was coming for me. I could feel it now, the creature's presence pressing down on me, its hunger nearly suffocating. It was in the air, the walls, the very earth beneath me. It was always there, always waiting for the cycle to end. But I wasn't ready to give up. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, and I stood. The reflection of myself in the glass was still there, but this time, something was different. I could see through it, through the curse. I wasn't completely lost yet. There was still time. I could feel the last thread of my humanity, my identity, pulling me forward. I wasn't going to let it take me. Not without a fight. I could feel the earth beneath me tremble as the creature's shadow stretched closer. But this time, I would be ready.